global solutions to European challenges. In this case, what about digitization of agri-food? Dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this thematic breakout session. My name is Greet Riebels. I'm the moderator of this session. I'm also communication manager of ILVO, the Institute for Agriculture, Fisheries and Food Sciences in Flanders. And ILVO is the coordinator of this session, so that's why. It's my goal to have an interesting dialogue with you about what is the best way to have relevant and viable digital applications in our sector, the agri-food sector, and what goes well and what kind of processes ought to be further optimized. During the panel discussion, we will have some Slidos, so we will ask your opinion. So my first question to you is take your mobile phone and have the QR code activated so that we won't lose any time in activating the app. But yes, you have the code. I give you some more seconds. All right. Some more seconds. We'll leave the slide for a couple of more seconds. First, ladies and gentlemen, let's set the scene with a keynote speech. I give the floor to Doris Markaert from DG Connect. I think most of you know her. Please take the floor. Doris.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to provide and set the scene today. I would like to thank for the introduction. My name is Doris Markwald from DG Connect, Unit E4, the contract person for agriculture. So you see the title of this session, From Research to Reality. And I would like to thank the Belgian Council Presidency to give room to discuss this important topic from the lenses of agri-food and to discuss and reflect on the particularities of this innovation ecosystem and discuss the functionality. In my presentation today, I will reflect on the European Union policies and programs in support of digital innovation in agri-food. As in the other parallel sessions, I will dedicate particular attention to the Digital Euro program and the Horizon Euro program. Let me raise one question. Who is familiar with one or both of the programs? Please raise a hand. Okay, that, let's say, facilitates my life. I see you are well prepared for the session, and as it's important for the Commission to gather feedback on the functioning of the programs, I would strongly encourage you to get involved in the discussion and actively contribute through Slido or later in the discussion directly. To set the scene and, let's say, reflect on research to reality, I would like to start with one figure. It's a very simplified view on the innovation ecosystem, but you see here, from research to reality, you have innovators and you have end users, in agri-food mostly the farmers and food processors. And if you look at the situation of an innovator on the left-hand side, so he has research, he has innovation, but in the end, the aim is to bring the innovation up to the market, also the end user and society, and to have a sustainable business model. On the other side, the end user in a functional innovation ecosystem, ideally, he or she has the capacities to buy the innovative solutions and to effectively deploy it. So that is a scene setter. I will start with two hypotheses. First of all, so for having a functional ecosystem, the feedback from the end user to the innovator over the innovation cycle is essential. And secondly, for both for the innovator and also for the end user. Capacity building and networking is a necessity for a functional innovation ecosystem. So you may challenge these two hypotheses in the later discussion. I'm happy to see what your reaction are to that. So let's have one further look. I said, okay, I'm from the policy side. And if there's public support to research and innovation, there's mostly the expectation that research and innovation contributes to policy ambitions. And in the area of agri-food, what you can frequently find references, for instance, to the Green Deal, to the headline ambition of the digital age and exploit the potential of digital technologies, but also, for instance, to better regulation, which means also cutting red tape, which appears to be quite important in the agriculture sector, to have vibrant innovation ecosystems, or to organize spillover effects to rural areas through innovation in agri-food. Overall, sometimes, if you look at policy ambitions, it might be needed through research and innovation programs to close market gaps, because otherwise research and innovation without a stimulus through public funding might not be there. So, in fact, we have a range of policy programs in support, directly or indirectly, to innovation in digital technologies in agri-food. Today, as already mentioned, I will focus on two of them, Horizon Europe and Digital Europe. So Horizon Europe being home to research and innovation, and Digital Europe focusing on deployment with a particular focus on EU-wide applications and capacity building. That is in a nutshell, let's say, the supplementarity of those two programs. But we can further zoom in. You said most of you are familiar with Horizon Europe and the Digital Europe program. So we have the Cluster 4 in Horizon Europe focusing on digital space, and then the Cluster 6 on environment, agriculture, natural resources and the bioeconomy, and then the Digital Europe program. So if we now have a closer look, what is the supplementarity? Then we can say in Cluster 4, simplified speaking, we have the research and innovation focusing on digital technologies, bringing them ahead with a cross-sectoral or cross-domain focus. So it's really, for instance, if we take the example of AI, research on AI, enhancing AI applications. Then in Cluster 6, we have, let's say, application fields. Digital technologies working in a specific context, making them work for agriculture. So that is the difference between Cluster 4 and Cluster 6. So in Cluster 6, we look at topics or projects, let's say, focusing on research and innovation with AI in, for instance, agriculture. And then in the Digital Europe program, we don't have research anymore. We focus on, for instance, scaling up innovative solutions to the market, to the end user, or on deployment of EU-wide, let's say, applications, or, for instance, on testing AI or providing infrastructure for AI applications. If we now zoom in for Horizon Europe, then we have now currently work under the strategic plan for 21 to 24. That is one period with a medium term, let's say, guiding principles, setting the line for the two work programs. In the strategic plan, you will find, as the quote reveals, a clear focal point under Cluster 6, and particular, more specifically, on the focus on sustainable food systems, a reference how digital technologies are expected to be used in Cluster 6 and enable the ecosystem to better functioning through research and innovation. I will not go into detail, but if you go through the work programs, for instance, 21 and 22 for Cluster 6, you will find a number of topics focusing on digitalization and data technologies in agriculture, reaching from connectivity issues, blockchain for traceability, or also trust and data sharing. We are currently implementing the work program 23-24, and in parallel, we are already looking ahead, preparing the work program 25-26. And there we follow a so-called co-creation process. And co-creation means that not only the Commission internally is co-creating, but we are co-creating with the member states, with the stakeholders, and events like this are providing the opportunity to co-create with the research and innovation community and the stakeholders like sectoral organizations. So it takes this opportunity. Then we have the Digital Euro program. It's a relatively new program, meaning for the first time it is rolled out, but the first work program was already released in 21, and we have already this amendment of the second work program have in December 23, so it's not that new anymore. So if I should pick out some measures under this Digital Euro program, which are particularly relevant for agriculture, then there is a common European agriculture data space for which currently a so-called coordination and support action is running, developing an approach towards a data space, which is subsequently followed by a deployment action to be called in Q1, Q2 this year. In addition, we have the testing and experimentation facilities for AI in agri-food, allowing to test, let's say, research results in the field of AI in the sector. We have the European Digital Innovation Hubs, where we have many or a high share focusing on agri-food applications, but also actions in, let's say, the scope of capacity building, like support to advance digital skills. For my apologies. So we have here one figure, which may look a little bit challenging, but it should illustrate, let's say, at the European level, we try our best to have synergies between the key actions which we launch at European level. And we try to follow a systemic perspective and have a, let's say, a strategic perspective how those actions might be interlinked and go well in hand with each other. So most of you are familiar with the Horizon projects, let's say a broad range of inspiring projects bringing and delivering results, sometimes so many that we don't have an overview of all the inspiring results and it's hard to manage. Then the Horizon projects are likely to inform actions under digital innovation hubs where they can be scaled up. They can inform the development of the data space, the Common European Agriculture data space. They can be scaled up under the testing and experimentation facilities. In addition, we look ahead and expect a Horizon Europe partnership agriculture of data, which is expected to have a kind of umbrella effect of research projects to screen for relevant results, interchange, network, and facilitate it. In addition, that partnerships focusing on agriculture of data is also expected to bring about and develop European-wide data sets, which might be a game changer for many, let's say, smaller research initiatives to have input data, for instance, for AI, and those data sets may also be fed into the agriculture data space. Overall, you see one important line in the line on the scope of the sessions, from research to deployment, or from research to reality. So, but it's not enough to focus on innovation. There we cannot stop. There's one essential step more. Innovation has to reach the end user, under consideration of the socioeconomic and legal framing condition and environmental framing conditions in agriculture, because agriculture is bound by nature. And let me add for socioeconomic framing condition that culture also does matter. Agriculture is also a culture and is also linked to passion, and both may determine the uptake of digital technologies. And so far, let's look at two further instruments which are particularly relevant when linking innovators and end users and have interactive models towards creating innovation. That's the so-called European Innovation Partnership, Agriculture and Sustainability, which is funded by both Horizon Europe and the Common Agriculture Policy, and the European Digital Innovation Hubs, which I already mentioned and which are funded, let's say, mostly under the Digital Euro program or from national resources. I will not go into detail, but what is common to both instruments is that they try in the one way or the other to build capacities on the side of the end user and the innovator to have sustainable business models, and the capacities for both sides, the end user and the innovator, to reach the final goal of making innovation effectively deployable in practice, in reality. So under the European Innovation Partnership, for instance, operational groups bring scientists and practitioners together and develop innovative solutions in agriculture. Under the digital innovation hubs, also capacities are built as it regards compliance with legislation and so on, so that innovative solutions can more easily reach the market. The following slide, let's say, condenses main instruments and provides an overview how the different instruments complement each other at European level, and what is the intention behind it, and how they can go hand in hand. We cannot go into detail, I only set the scene, but I invite you to go through afterwards. The main important column here is a scope, and I started that already at the beginning. So we have Horizon Europe focusing on research innovation, we have Digital Europe focusing on innovation, deployment and capacity building, and then the Common Agriculture Policy, which has a key focal point on the end user and the agri-food innovation system, supporting, for instance, training, advice or training, or investments in digital solutions. So, and you see here a number of actions as an example, and you may play it through whether that is sufficient for running a functional innovation system. I started with this slide, and I would like to recall before we go into the discussion. And have a look at it and reflect on it. One key question which will guide us through the discussion is, what are the factors enabling the process from research and reality in digital and agri-food and allowing for a functional innovation system? Are the programs, which I outlined, for instance, sufficient to boost innovation in this ecosystem? Up for discussion. And with that, let me bring to some concluding remarks. So first of all, public and private interests, resources, data, and other, let's say, needs are to be considered to boost digital innovation in agri-food. And here, as policies have to be considered as well, and societal needs, also market gaps have to, hampering, let's say, relevant research, have to be addressed and reflected in research and innovation programs. So for policy needs, important to be mentioned are, for instance, sustainability ambitions, efficiency gains, but also the reduction of administrative burden on both sides, public and private, and that can also go hand in hand. At European level, or from a European programming perspective, key instruments like Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, or also the Common Agriculture Policy are available. For being effective, they have to be used in a systematic way, and also synergies between instruments have to be created and effectively implemented. At some points, I did not discuss it in detail today, but one observation from the European level, sometimes agriculture and food do not always are linked systematically, and links could be strengthened between agriculture and food, and which could be established between the two ecosystems. Assets for scaling up digital innovation in agri-food include systemic action within European-wide scope, or systemic actions in data to achieve scalability more easily, such as data sharing, capacity building, awareness raising, and establishing trust on the one side, but also, for instance, European-wide data sets, which may allow for a more diversified innovation system, allowing more innovative players to scale up and their innovative solution, having the critical mass of testing data and having common testing infrastructure. What's important here? The jointly shaping a diverse and balanced innovation ecosystem and using its potential for the agri-food sector requires an active science policy interface, and today that is one opportunity. The involvement of the sector, and I'm pleased that also this is the case today, or will be the case today, and the involvement of the end users and advisors in industry. It also requires, as briefly mentioned, the consideration of the socio-economic and environmental and legal framing condition to make the innovation system functional. And finally, to jointly shape an innovation ecosystem, this session will generate important input for the programming cycle of Digital Europe and Horizon Europe. And I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doris Markaert. If you would have any questions, urgent questions, please remember them, because in a couple of minutes we will give you the opportunity to answer, not now. So thank you once more. We have a lot of food for thought in this last slide. I know already what to ask during the debate. Let me now introduce you to the other three panelists. You can take your seat, Doris. We have three panelists whom we have asked to give at the utmost 2 slides and give some introductory statements. Let me begin with Jurgen van Geiten, one of the scientific directors of ILVO. You remember the Institute of Agricultural and Food and Fisheries Sciences in Flanders. Jurgen's team is 80 researchers and developers, quite well connected with the local agri-food industries and farms, but as well connected with the European policy and research networks. Their goal is, let me try to summarize, working and developing knowledge and technological services on smart farming applications, precision agriculture, either in livestock and in crop production systems, integrating high-end digital and data technology into solutions for the future food production change, and so on and so on. Jürgen,
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I tried to summarize, I
Okay,
told you. Maybe one question before you give your statements. How important are your contacts with the rest of ILVO, saying the researchers working on plant technology topics, livestock, the social researchers? Because it's a different thing, working in technology, research, and working in the biological side.
Yes, but I think with this remark, you're touching on one of the strongest points of ILVO, actually. And I think if we can talk in competition, I think that makes us very strong, because we are, through that, very integrated. So we don't work in verticals. There is not the technology department only. We work very horizontal. So I'm always very connected to, for instance, the people in social sciences, which allows us to directly connect the business model to the technical developments, for instance. We are also very connected to the domain knowledge of plant and animal production. So this is of the biggest importance, actually, that you can find. But I want to add that also the connection with other institutes, but I will come to that, is also very important.
Okay. Curious for your statements, please. Jurgen van Geiten.
Okay, I will start with a confession. I have 3 slides. Sorry for that. I was already introduced by Reet very extensively, so that's not necessary anymore. But I would like to start very shortly with sharing with you the data technology challenges that we face for implementing the EU transition and bringing it to reality. And I have 6 of them, but I will focus on the 5 that are today very important. Let me start by the first one, the availability of qualitative data. We collect a lot of data, but let's be honest, a lot of this data is still not of sufficient quality to get into or to be feeding into our algorithms and to use these algorithms to get intelligence from the data. Especially in agri-food, I want to stress that this is very challenging because we need to collect data in different environmental conditions, different weather conditions, different geographical regions, different varieties of plants, for instance. Or to make it a little bit more concrete and to challenge the other verticals, I think building a robot that can pick up a component in a factory in Flanders and pick up the same component in a factory in Spain, it's less challenging than building a robot that can decide on the ripeness of a tomato in a Flemish greenhouse or in a Spanish greenhouse, because we're talking about different lighting conditions, different varieties. So I think for agri-food, if we can be a little bit looking at our own sector, this is a very big challenge, bigger than in other verticals. Of course, once you have collected this data, the semantic interoperability to bring all this data together is very important. Otherwise, we cannot treat it as big data. And then it brings us to another big one, getting this technology adopted. And getting this technology adopted is not possible without testing in real life. Farmers don't want robots that work on YouTube. They don't want a robot that works in one condition. They want a robot that works when the soil is drier and also still works when the soil is wet to the weather conditions. So that is very important. And then the last one, they're all important, but I think this one can also be in the top list, trust. In a lot of cases, especially when we're talking about data sharing, it's not always or not so much about the great technology. It's about giving trust to the end user that the technology will give him control, that the technology will keep him in control of his data, that he will know where his data going. So that is a very important one too. So how are we addressing this in Ilvo? Well, we have an approach that is based on 3 important components. Of course, logically, you start from a very strong interdisciplinary competence center. I mean, you need to know what you're talking about. And I was happy that Greet already took part of my slides by asking how important is it to get connected. Yes, we need to be very interdisciplinary connected at Ilvo. So the robotic guys need to talk to the people who know how to develop a business model or how to do life cycle assessment. This is what I'm trying to explain here. And then we're using another very interesting concept, which might, in the beginning, look to people like just a buzzword, but these digital innovation hubs, they really make a difference. Ilvo is acting as a digital innovation hub, and it means that we are a kind of orchestrator in a very large ecosystem, in an ecosystem of research organizations, universities, investors, the big companies, the smaller SMEs, also the government is there, development agencies, also the big industry associations and the incubator and the accelerators. We try to be in the middle of all these actors and connect them together, because what we're trying to do is be a one-stop shop. If any customer comes to us with a question related to digital technology, we need to be there for him all the way, not just solve part of the question and then send him to IMEC and never see him again, or send him to some governmental actor and never see him again. No, we stay with our customer all the way till the solution is brought into reality. That is what we do here. And what is the strong point here? We built on this very strong network, and I see some of our partners here in the room, this very international and national network of Ilvo. And we use this to do knowledge transfer, and we use this to accelerate this innovation ecosystem that also Doris talked about. The third component that we use is the living lab approach. And the living lab approach is something that we implement actually more or less on all Ilvo activities. It means that we keep this focus on the end user. We start with the end user and we go into a co-creative process with this end user, and we start developing using multiple methods. If one doesn't work, we try another method, and we go into a development cycle of what we call MVPs, minimum viable products, and we try to develop very strongly and get end user feedback. And again, we develop in real life conditions, and we check with all other stakeholders to get feedback on our developments. And in this living lab approach, we also seek this cooperation and connection to the governance and the farmers. Here, we mostly use use cases to start our work, and it gives us the possibility also to give feedback to policy and regulations, but it also gives us the possibility to get very close to these farmers and engage with them. And there also, already mentioned by Doris, our cooperation with the EIP Agri community is very important, and especially these operational groups. So here, the focus is on the end user. And the last step in the system is being humble and know that you can still learn. So from each Living Lab application, we use our learning points and we integrate it again to make the competence center stronger. This is how we are trying to do it. And the most important component for us is EU collaboration partnerships. The fact that we engage in a lot of Horizon Europe projects and Digital Europe makes us stronger and makes sure that we have trustworthy partners, but we can work on the long term together, not just one project, but from one project into another. Okay, maybe you think, yes, this is a very nice slide, but let's make it a little bit more practical. A lot of our work started, and I'm looking at Grigoris, with IOF 2020. We started to learn about competences related to digital technologies. We learned about connected objectives, and for us, it was the first step into this ecosystem. And then we went in projects that allowed us to further expand our network. There was AgroBoFood. Recently, we expand into the soil community through Soilwise, but this one was the most important, smart agri hubs. I think I forgot the number, Grigoris, but I think 300 digital innovation hubs, 250, I don't know, but are in the network there and gave us a tremendous network that is still standing because there is now a smart agri hubs community that continues, where we strongly connected to all these digital innovation hubs. So this gives us this very strong network that I talked about before. And then talking about deployment, in these projects, for instance, in the TEF, the agri-food TEF, and in the agri-data space, we are trying, or we are not just trying, we are also succeeding to bring what we learn in the previous projects into applications. And I'm not just talking here, you will see that we have started working on this data space in real life. Not directly all over Europe, but what I like to count now a multi-country data space. And we started cooperations with Sweden, with France, with Poland, Turkey, Spain, Slovenia. All there we had emerging ecosystems like Agri-Data Hub, which is not emerging anymore, but Just Connect. Edwin in Poland, for instance, Triton in Finland. Sorry, I was a correction for the flag mistake. It's Finland that we are working. And we are working here with these countries together, and it's a step-by-step, bottom-up building up of this agricultural data space. Very concrete here, we are bringing more and more data together related to the potato production sector, and that allows us to expand what I said about these data sets, so build up bigger and bigger data sets. And we are not just collecting the data for the data and to say that we have a big data set, we are building applications on top of these data sets. For instance, the climate scan that Ilvo has is built on these data sets and allows us to calculate the climate impact of these productions based on sustainability data that we are collecting. And what our Living Lab also adds, we build on top of this digital work also hardware platforms, mostly collaborative platforms that we offer to farmers and to industry to test with, a robotic platform or also a platform to test electrification in agriculture called Just E. And at the end, we integrate this knowledge again into new projects that are now starting, like Food Data Quest or the already running project Data for Food. So I think this is the end of my presentation, and I hope that I tried to explain you a little bit, or that you got a little bit how Ilvo is trying to do this translation from research to reality.
More food for thought, quite a heavy opening statement, I must say. Grigoris Chatsikostas is now invited to the floor. Grigoris, let me try to introduce you. You are expert in financing innovations in agtech and food tech. That means, amongst others, managing multinational, cross-sectional and sectoral consortia and promoting tech-enabled entrepreneurship in the agri-food sector through EU-funded large-scale projects, but also I understand that you offer mentoring, strategic consulting, mentoring and strategic consulting to companies with promising ideas. It's intriguing. Tell me, 20 years of experience, give me some figures. How many startups and SMEs did you support already?
I think more than 150 or reaching 200 now.
Okay, and they are all successful?
No, very few are successful, but those very few are very successful. The thing is that in this startup community, the thing that you first learn is how to fail. and how to enjoy the failure. So it's not that all the companies are successful.
Good. Last question. How regional or European is your action area? Is it mostly in Greece or not at all?
We are working in Southeast Europe. We're also working, I worked many years in Serbia. We still have an office in Serbia, but I think we're working all over Europe for quite many years.
Thank you. I invite you to give the opening statements.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation. I'm invited here today to talk to you about the future. So, I will try to do, oops, no, not this one, sorry. So, I will talk to you about the past. I will take you back to the 80s, the time that I was a curious kid and I had to grow up without internet. So this means that I was looking for information in the popular science magazines. And I tried to find some of those. My uncle used to bring them from the United States. Look how agriculture was supposed to be back for the future. In the 80s, we were promised that this is how our farms would look like, that everything would be so automated, green, sustainable, and everything. Is it like that? No. It seems that our future, what we have been promised about the future was not actually materialized. It seems that today we are facing big challenges. United Nations data show that our food systems are broken. We see that the citizens are not happy about it. We see that the farmers are not happy about it. And we see that if we want to put it into figures, if I have to justify my background as an economist, it seems that it's more than 13 trillion euros annually as a lost opportunity from the fact that our food system is not optimized. Again, United Nations data. I'm not in the position to create such data myself, obviously. Let's try to see a little bit how we can move from the challenges to what we want to see in the future and what will be the drivers. It's clear that the challenges we're facing are known to everyone. We want more and healthier food. We want to do it in a global setup that the investments in agriculture are getting lower. And I come from Greece, and this summer we paid a very heavy price of climate change. We had huge floods, we had huge fires. And guess what? The people who were largely affected by that was the farmers in the farming sector. And this very quickly became an issue in the consumers because the price of food went very high very quickly. So we're talking about innovation and we're talking about research. If we want to clarify, let me use a simplistic statement that will help us organize our discussion later on. When we're talking about research, we're actually investing money in order to gain knowledge. And when we're talking about innovation, what we're doing is we're using this knowledge in order to create more money, more business for the society, for the economy. Based on that, when we're looking at the innovation, we should stop be looking at exciting ideas or videos on YouTube that look great or nice scientific papers, but we should look a little bit at the real business value of innovation in terms of efficiency, in terms of cost effectiveness. Roberto Viola later on told us that in Europe we are facing a gap in our competitiveness. So do we really use innovation to enhance our competitiveness? And then the technologies are there theoretically to support all these things. We have artificial intelligence to help us make faster and better decisions. We have the blockchain to help us create the trust that we need in the value chain. We have the robotics so that we can tackle the labor shortages and to assign the difficult jobs to others. And we have the digital twins to help us model and understand the effect of our decisions across the whole value chain. And of course, we have high-performance computing that supports all the above and many other activities. But the question is, since we have all these technologies, why they're not applied by our farmers? Who are the agents of change? Who are the ones who will kickstart this process? Of course, the role of policymakers is very important. Of course, the roles of big industry is also very important. But maybe there are missed opportunities if we don't look at small parts of the value chain, small parts of the ecosystem that can really drive things forward, that are really willing to take the risks needed. First of all, let's try to look at the citizens and the consumers and try to understand their needs. Also, there are parts of the agricultural sector, and I'm very happy that I will be sharing the stage with Seya later on, the young farmers, the organic farmers, the people who are closer to the digital community, the ones that are our natural allies in the process of developing synergies. So, coming back to the future, what will define the future? First of all, we had this discussion yesterday evening with Jürgen. Will the traditional model survive? Will the farmers remain the ones who will be producing food, or it will go to corporates? That's very important to know. Another thing that I got from the director of IMEC in the plenary, we are facing now a critical point where we have to see if the globalization process will continue to exist or if we will start working in silos. And there are many risks if we start working in silos, and it's difficult to predict how it would look like if Europe needs to work alone, needs to work in a closed environment. So I think that what will define the future is who will be driving this transformation forward, and that can give lots of results. And that is just a big question mark that concludes my initial statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grigoris. I introduce to you Sebastian Pirel from SEJA, the European Council for Young Farmers. SEJA promotes and supports younger and more innovative agricultural sector. Where are you? Come over. Let's look at you. You yourself, Sebastian, are a policy advisor. You have coordinated the SEJA paper entitled Smart Farmers for Smart Farming. I'm very curious about that. Let me ask you a question. We had some farmers on the street protesting and blockading the roads, etc., very frustrated and angry. What were you thinking in the light of maybe your statement? Are they not digitalized enough to cope with all their challenges? Was that what you were thinking?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I would say it's a complex question to which we cannot answer such a simple answer and saying digital is not there enough. So, of course, I am still very affected by what's happening on the streets with the protests, and I think the link we can make with digitalization, and I heard in the previous presentation of Grigoris the word risk, and I think this is something that we can find in common with the frustration that has grown among the farming community, like what are the risks taken by the farmer, because they do take a big share of the risk in all of the topics we talk about, and I'm not going to develop them extensively, but this is the same with digital development. It's who is taking the risk, and can we share this burden and not just leave the farmer alone in all of those challenges, and I will touch upon that in the presentation as well.
Okay, I invite you to do your statement with 2 slides, I hope. Yes.
Thank you very much. So, it was said before, young people grew up with internet, digital solutions, so we could argue that digital development in agriculture goes also with young farmers. So I'm representing, as it was said, the European Council of Young Farmers. I'm not a farmer myself, but representing them. And so we often see this cliché picture of a farmer on the field, a sunset, cereals field, and a tablet in its hands. So as I was just saying, this is part of maybe the solutions and what can drive the sustainability transition, what can enable more efficiency on the farm. But at the same time, what I would like to say is, like, is this enough? And is it solving everything, to also go back to your question? So the first slide I decided to present, I know it's a very packed slide, so I apologize for this. The first slide was, again, to pick up some of the challenges and repeat some of them that were already mentioned in the 3 previous interventions. But I would start with the first one. Is it enough? Maybe not, because if we take just the demographic challenge in farming, we see that we have only 6.5% of farmers that are below the age of 35 years old in the EU. So that's a first context element to bear in mind. This is a very big challenge. So, and this is, as I was saying, the main mission of SEJA, to promote generational renewal in agriculture. Then what you would see right below is stock image of a drought. It was said already before, climate change is a big challenge. We had the example of Greece. I personally come from the north of France. We saw regions where we had three floods in a row in certain areas in less than 3 months, with all the challenges that it brings for farmers. So when we look at digital solutions, this of course will also be one of the priorities. How can it help to adapt, to mitigate climate change? And we see, and it was also mentioned as part of the projects before, but lots of initiatives that are really looking in this type of solution. Then uncertainty, I would say, with this graph with diverging curves. And this is also very much linked to climate change and in general to the fact that farmers are working with nature. So how can these also digital solutions bring more certainty or accompany the farmer in this uncertainty? Because you don't adapt your production as quickly as you would do for a pen factory, for example, or any type of object, because just the fact that your cows are growing and you have to milk them anyway, or you cannot speed up the process of cereals growing. So you don't adapt to the demand as quickly as you would like in some other sectors. The weak position in the value chain, this is one of CIJA's work that we've been doing on how to rebalance, as I was saying again before, the power in the value chain and share the risk. And this should also be a very big focus if we want to make it implementable when we have research on digital innovation. How would it be implemented? Again, how would farmers be the risk taker? They will for sure take the risk, but how can they be also accompanied in this process and find the good connections between all the actors that are involved across the food chain, from the input providers to the consumers? Everyone has a role to play in there, and again, this is very much linked to the recent protests of how to just accompany the farmers in this overall effort. Here you also have, that's a screenshot of the promotional video of a project where CIJA is involved. It's called FarmRes. It's an Erasmus Plus project this time, but it's on farmers' mental health and well-being. I think bureaucracy was also mentioned before. How can also digital solution help in this challenge? You are of course very passionate about your profession when you're a farmer, but maybe you need also to find this work-life balance, or not maybe, for sure you need to find it. And this is a big challenge. We see it in many sad examples on that. So again, just to trigger some ideas and of course there are some initiatives already, and in fact in this project, Farmers, one of the aims is to develop a digital platform where you will gather the data and the information on how to raise awareness on mental health in rural areas, how to detect problems and how to solve them. So this is again an example. Infrastructure in rural areas, to make it attractive, to make it also workable, because of course I'm saying the obvious here, but if you need to bring some digital solutions, you need internal coverage. So of course it will be also linked not only to the project's development in the EU, but also the rest of EU policies with a multi-governance aspect in that, because it's not only the EU playing here a role, but it has for sure a big role to play. Last, maybe knowledge and skills. I won't repeat what was said already before, but of course raising this capacity of end users to really pick up the solutions that are promoted and proposed. Interesting figure as well here, 72% of farmers in the EU rely only on practical experience on the farm. And this is without saying that being a farmer also already comes with a lot of skills needed. You have to be an agronomist, you have to be a communicator, you have to be an HR specialist if you have employees, you have to be an accountant, you are a negotiator, a trader, etc., etc. So you already have a lot of skills that are necessary. And this will make the transition to my second slide, which is which was the one of the policy paper we developed in the organization, where our member organization sent delegates to CIJA meeting. Every month we meet with young farmers from all across Europe, and they were telling us when we started this discussion on smart farming in general, yeah, but maybe you need to be a smart farmer in order to really uptake smart farming solutions. So that's why it became the title, a very broad title of the document, Smart Farmers for Smart Farming. But I would like to leave you with three main messages, and again, going back to the research to reality concept of this event. How do we bring research to reality? First, you need to find, again, to keep in mind this knowledge and skills aspect. So how do you enable the continuous upskilling of farmers? How do you, sometimes very practical things, but if you have a livestock farm at home, how do you anticipate the replacement service to go to the training where you will be involved in a certain project, for instance, or try to be trained on the use of new solutions for your farm? Sometimes very simple aspect like this. The second one, using the right techniques, technologies and strategies. Here we had an anecdote on a farm visit in Bulgaria at some point with the organization where the farmer had 10 tractors in the backyard, and someone went to him and, oh, you must have a very big farm. Oh no, that's just my advisor that advised me to have those. Just, again, I'm making it very short, but it showed, again, like you need the proper advice, and the most important, how do we fit the actual needs? And it was, again, said before, not the same needs in the Netherlands or in Portugal or in Spain. And the last one, financing. It was also said in the plenary before, funding is key, was mentioned by DG Connect, the Director General. So how do we also foster those solutions thanks to financing opportunity? We see if you have a very expensive solution, that might be the best, for instance, but if it's not fitting the business plan of the farmer, it's not going to work. We see, for example, young farmers are 2 to 3 times more likely to see their loan application being rejected by the bank. So this is also something to keep in mind. You don't have the same history of your farm, and to be strong in front of your bank to go for a credit and this type of aspects. And of course, there's how it can be enabled with projects and with policy. But this is yes, maybe where I would stop. I'm happy that I see lots of common points also with what was said before. Again, taking the risk, how we create the business value, as it was said by Grigoris. Also on the trust that was mentioned, I very much like that. It's what we heard as a feedback from the young farmers we have in the network. Yeah, but maybe I don't trust what is proposed to me. And again, going back to this 10 tractors story, and Doris, what you brought also on, is it sufficient? Again, it shows that it's also going way beyond the digital solution itself, but also with the key enablers that are surrounding them. So thank you very much, and happy to continue the discussion.
Thank you. You can also already stay on stage, and I also invite the other panelists to come forward, and we are going to the discussion now. But I wonder who you are, and this is the first Slido question. Are you more feeling like taking part in the research part of the title of this conference, or more in the part of reality? Where do you situate yourself? Oh, 50-50. We have 50-50. No.
More reality.
Maybe, are you going to vote as well? Or where do you situate yourself, Sebastian?
I'm more on the part of reality,
I
would
thought
say.
so. Yes, Jürgen?
I'm in both, so I didn't vote.
Yeah, Grigoris?
I don't think it's easy for anyone to say that he's not part of reality.
No. But just make your choice without being philosophical.
Sure,
Reality? Yes, okay. And Doris?
I think I'm also both, because I have a farming background, I know the farming reality, I have the policy reality, and I have also worked in science and support now science, and have the pleasure to see the science results. So
you have the majority of people attending this breakout session. finding themselves in reality, but 1/3 in research. Next question for you. To what kind of sector do you belong? You have some possibilities. I belong to the technology, policy, research, development, agri-food businesses, or other. 10% is other. 0 comes from our sector. How dare you be here? I'm very sorry. Oh, but you don't vote. Okay, okay. I accept your votes. That's a pity. We are talking about a sector, not having them in the room. Maybe this is already a signal. What's wrong with us? Okay, for the rest, a lot of policymakers, a lot of research, of course. Other, who is other? Who is other? And what do you mean by other? Who said other? Oh, nobody dares to take the microphone? Okay, it's a mystery. Okay, then let's start. You see already what I'm doing. I have an extra microphone. If you have every questions, urgent question, and that is maybe my first invitation to you, did you hear things from the statements or from the keynote from Doris where you have urgent questions, remarks, criticisms to formulate now before I ask the panelists to discuss amongst them? Do I say, yes, who are you and what do you want to ask to whom?
Hello, yeah. So I'm Anne Dubois, I'm working for a French SME. And it's a general question. It's related to your question, are we from reality or from research? I think we are from the reality because we are delivering products and services. But the question I have is it the good reality? Is it a good and a bad reality? Because I just...
Who do you want to answer?
It's a question. It's just like all of us.
But
But
translate
it's
the question. How bad or how good is reality?
And sorry, it's just like if we
In
look at
agri-food.
farmer crisis at the moment, the farmer being in the street, being... I think Grégory's had a very good slide on that. It's the farmer crisis, it's the citizens' crisis. Like we want a new farming system, we want a new... and it's also about the European policy, so it's where is the reality?
This is
my
a very
question.
difficult question, I think. Who can take the first answer to one of both remarks or questions? Doris.
So I think I would like to respond to the second question from France. So first of all, I would not differentiate between good and bad, at least not for the innovation ecosystem. I would say, do we have a functional ecosystem or a non-functional? Can we enhance the performance? And related to the second part of your question, can we make it more tailored to address, let's say, the challenges in the sector? So you now said, okay, the sector, so not the innovation ecosystem, has a lot of challenges, and we can raise the question, are those challenges really addressed by our research and innovation initiative retailer? So, or do we have to tailor them in a better way to really address the needs of the sector? So I think I would let's link it to functionality and then to see, okay, where can we perform better? But I would not say that an innovation ecosystem is per se bad or very good. I think it's a question of functioning.
Maybe the answer is, indeed, we know the challenges, we know what's bad in reality and what should be addressed. And that's what we are talking now. Maybe I have to watch a little bit my time and I have too much question prepared, but this would be a nice second slide or question. What do you think? Let's look at the next Slido. What would be, in your opinion, the most promising technology for the future in the agri-food sector? No, this is not the right question. I think the number 3. The number 3. No. This one. No. Where is the number 3? Oh, is there another one before this? No. Oh. Okay. No, don't bother. My question then first to Sebastian. I'm looking to you. Young farmers, is age an issue in our expectations to have more adoption of technologies that are already existing? Do you mean, I mean, if we just sit and wait for the next generation of farmers, young farmers, are they going in a natural way to adopt more technologies, digital technologies?
Well, I would say no, because as I tried also to show before, there are some key enablers that need to be gathered as a prerequisite. And then if I continue on some very sometimes practical examples, just before it was on this example of you need to be replaced if you want to get the knowledge and go out of your farm. Another example would be when you have a family farm with several generations on the farm. That was also one of the feedback of our, I think it was our Spanish delegate in our meeting was saying, sometimes it's difficult to bring this new solution on the farm. Not necessarily because as a young farmer, I know that it can be with lots of benefits and it will be workable. But just because I don't manage to convince the older generation that we should be on board. So how do you manage this kind of fight or struggle among like intergenerational struggle to move the farm management and steer the wheel and who is making this change on the farm. So again, an example of how it can create some hurdles.
I'm looking for the low-hanging fruit. How do we promote and get this motor wheel turning faster and faster? Jürgen, you have a lot of contacts with companies, with farmers. Can you tell me what kind of characteristics do they bear in themselves, being a pioneer, being an early adopter? How do you need to be, or do you be? Are you a bigger one or a financially stronger one? What are the most important characteristics to jump into the new technologies?
I don't really know if there's a really list of characteristics, but I think if we're really honest, in a lot of cases, if you want to engage the whole ecosystem, it's quite easy to get these first innovators. They're stepping into a first European project. Sometimes they're a little bit afraid of the administration, but you can convince them. And then once they see the benefits, they will accelerate and they will start looking how they can use research to speed up their development roadmap. But the challenge is how to get all the others involved, because it's quite easy to go back to the usual suspects, but how to get the other ones into the game. And that's a challenge I think that actors like us should play. We really have to go out and pull them into innovation. There is, in many cases, no other way than being out in the ecosystem, go to fairs where the companies are, talk to them and try to convince them about stepping into innovations. It's really hard work. I think that is a part of the answer.
It's interesting. We are a research institute. Research and innovation. That is what TRL levels. And do we need to care, we as researchers, to have anybody follow and upscale? Grigoris, you're nodding. No, not the task of Jürgen. Is it yours?
I believe it's everybody's task. Try to imagine a situation where we have medical research and the researchers do not care about the patients. Of course we need to take care of the farmers, and of course they should be in the center of the research of the institutes, of the innovation actors, of the startups and the SMEs. I mean, if we are aiming to produce safe and adequate food, we look at the people who produce it and the people who consume it. So we have to look at the farmers and the consumers. Both.
How? How do we convince them? Is that the key question,
Yes.
Doris?
Yes, I think yes. And I think we cannot even speak with one solution for whole Europe. because let's say, farm systems and the advisory structure systems, they vary. So I think we need to see, sometimes even regionally, what are the best multipliers. And I totally agree, we all have to play an active role. So from research, let's say a first step in that direction is the multi-actor approach to involve already, let's say, the different players in a research, let's say, project. But also, let's say, in the farming community, it starts sometimes with the field trips from the machinery companies, from the farm advisors, what is my neighbor doing? So I think we have to activize the whole innovation ecosystem, and for innovation ecosystem, I would also count organizations like SEA, I would count for the public administration, and sometimes the degree of trust for farmers varies in the different players. Sometimes the trust in the administration is higher, sometimes the trust in the advisors is higher, or in the other farmers. And there I think we really have to go and focus on.
Sebastian?
Yeah, just I agree on the, I mean, of course, I agree on the farmers' organizations, but this is also what we hear. Like, we trust you in the first place as farmers' organization because we look over the fence and we see what's happening. So I'm just repeating here.
Okay.
But we also, this, in Flanders, we have a Groeningring that is a member of SEJA, and they developed a training initiative where they said we don't necessarily have always the enough funding, or because we are just a young farmers organization, and they say we are, like, it's a pity because we are the most trusted to give this knowledge, because again you create a safe space with peers, and peer-to-peer learning is a very, so it was just to repeat and comment on that.
Okay, the answer is everybody, and the...
Sorry, so on the answer, I would say, of course, everybody has a role.
I'm looking to Oscar. Oscar, do you find the question about main drivers? Did you find it?
Yes, it's now on the screen.
Okay. Question for you. What would be the main driver for adopting technologies on the side of the end user? What is their main driver to consider adoption? Is it compliance with environmental regulations? Is it productivity, profitability, economic feasibility? Is it compliance with consumers' expectations? Access to new markets? Lowering administrative burden? Sebastian already pointed at that. Access to knowledge? Other, maybe? What do you think? But unluckily, we do not have the farmer's opinion. So, first word is for Sebastian. What do you think the farmers would answer to that? Their driver to consider technology adoption?
Yes. Again, in 3 parts: knowledge and skills, technologies and being aware of them, and financing aspect. Then, of course, everything that goes...
What is the driver? Would they consider their profitability, their productivity to go up, more yield, less risks, are new markets, are these environmental things?
I think we could not really give one single answer, because it should be a combination of all of them.
Okay.
And if you take, for example, sustainability, even if you could see it as a benefit for society as a whole, and but then it also becomes an economics benefit for you as a farmer in the long run, because it would serve the resilience of your farm as a whole. So I would say that you kind of mix all of them together and cannot really go for one single objective. Then it will depend on which type of innovation and project we talk about.
Grigoris, this was a question that you were thinking it was very interesting, because you need to select where economy goes. Reflect on that.
For me, it's a no-brainer. It's the first driver on the side of the end user will always be their profitability and their economic feasibility.
Okay.
A farm is not Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's a company that needs to earn reasonable profits so that the farmer and their children remain in the rural areas and continue to do what they're doing. So in that sense, I think that if we do not look at the technologies from this perspective, we're of course in a risk. I wouldn't put compliance with consumers' expectations out or compliance with environmental regulations, but I see them as pieces of the bigger picture, meaning that obviously we all have to comply with rules and we need to, in a way, educate our farmers that they need to comply with the rules in the future, particularly the ones that are stemming from our need to combat climate change. Always, we need to also to comply with consumers' expectations because they are the customers in this process, and we need to listen to the customer like every other business. But I think that the productivity will always be number one.
Jürgen, you are looking as if you do not agree.
It's not that I not agree, but there is an extra condition that we might, of course, it's true what Gregorius says, but the problem is that for a farm, and as you gave the example of you cannot react, and it's not a business like any other business. You cannot say, if today selling pens is not profitable, I will go to pencils or to something else. So it's not so easy for a farmer to measure this top one all the time, or to get it on a dashboard. And there is not always, in practice, a direct feeling or a number that the farmer has all the time on how is he scoring on this profitability. And the one that he feels a lot is the one that didn't have any votes, but I think if the farmers would be here, they would be voting for it a lot, is lowering administrative burden.
Yes.
Because what we see, if we go out to talk to farmers about, for instance, technology that can make them in control of their data.
Give an example of that.
I don't need to promote our own things, but the platforms nowadays that are out there, like an Ag Data Hub or all these platforms that are there to give the farmer consent mechanisms. For instance, if you would tell him that maybe by giving consent he will have some extra earnings, but he first needs to pay €50 subscription to us, you get in a very unclear discussion and he will not be convinced about the gain. But if you tell him, if you use this application, you will win 5 hours a week on administrative burden, and instead of this pile of paper, you will just have a green and red button on your app.
Input of the same data, for example.
For instance, but where we can make these things simpler, or maybe if you would have an app who tells him, can I fertilize today or not? Because I just discussed with Doris before the meeting, you need to have a PhD nowadays to know when you can fertilize. So I think, of course, profitability, it's a business. You need to make your yield and your gain, but the lowering administrative burden is, I think, one that should be high on the agenda. And there, I think, we also have a huge possibility with technology, and we don't need to be too promises. First, maybe the very complex rules need to be simplified a little bit. Technology cannot change the complexity of the rule, but then the implementation of the technology, like you said, I'm submitting it for the government, I'm submitting it for my feed supplier, 3 times the same input, the same work. There, I think technology can do a lot. So it's a pity that it's not voted any higher, the lowering administrative.
Doris, I'm looking at you. Maybe the question is a little bit vague because we do not say driver for adoption of technologies. For whom? Are we talking governments? Are we talking farmers? Are we talking food processors? Would we have had different answers?
Yes, I think definitively. I think for the public administration, it's a similar challenge, or let's say considerations. And there's in some countries similar hesitations to make a step to simply change the system and to adopt more digital-driven solutions, also in the context of business to government, B2G or G2B data sharing, which has the potential to, let's say, reduce administrative burdens on both sides. So, but there we find variances between the countries. So some are more advanced than others, and some may already serve as good examples. I would also differentiate between farmers, and not only in terms of age, but also in terms of size. If you have the privilege to have an IT expert on your farm, whom you can trust as a person, then the problem is also easier solved, because you don't need to have the insights, you only trust the IT advisor who sets up the system.
Yes, that's interesting. And I wonder if Europe takes that into account enough in its programs. I'm not sure, but we have indeed in Europe, Czechoslovakia, farms with 400 people working there, and we have the small family businesses, farms.
Yes, and there is a risk of a digital divide because of that. Because if you have the capacities to really deploy digital technologies to your advantage very easily, so the divide between farm performance and the overall performance becomes bigger and bigger. And so far, it is really, you may challenge it or let's say comment on it from the SEA perspective, I think an important point to take care of and call the attention to.
And what is the ambition of Europe in this differentiation? Is Europe targeting at going forward with the good-willing, financially strong ones, or with everybody?
I think there is in both, from research and innovation, but also in the common agriculture policy, which is for sure in some extent, let's say, the steering in national hands. But if you look at the research and innovation programs, you find dedicated calls and topics strengthening the capacities for small farmers and digital technologies to really close market gaps where you see, okay, for the manufacturers or let's say IT companies, it's currently not worthwhile to make an offer for small farms. So to really cover this gap and to set a stimuli, okay, we need innovation dedicated to small farms, enabling them, and then also to link, important point which made Jürgen, to link technology and social science to really make it end-user friendly.
Okay. I introduce another theme, collaboration. Sebastian, you were talking already, don't expect the farmers to take the risks in digitization on their own. We need a whole chain to collaborate. First, Grigoris, maybe. How much experience do you have in trans-sectoral collaboration and sharing the risks and sharing the profitability of new systems?
I think that there is a misconception about the risk-taking approach here.
Why?
People believe that farmers don't like to take risks, while in
they
reality,
do. They do daily, I think.
the farmers are the most willing to take the risk. They're gambling against global conditions, they're gambling against weather, everything. But in the case of technology, we have another issue here that we need to look at it. The technology sector is always, by its definition, promising more than it can deliver. On my way to here in the plane, I was reading the story of PayPal, and it was funny to realize that they were promising services for a couple of years before delivering. This thing works in Silicon Valley, but does not work in the farm. Here, I think we have to be very careful what we promise to the farmers, and once we are able to verify this, and there are many ways to do that, the digital innovation hubs, the living labs, these are all places where you can verify technologies. And the European Commission is also financing some projects that are doing so. We're participating in a project called Quantifarm, who is trying to do exactly this, to tell the farmers the truth about digital technologies. But before telling the truth, we have to discover it. We have to know exactly what we're talking about, and then the risk-sharing mechanism will be more fair for everyone, I think.
Yes, yes. But I didn't get an answer to my question. The agri-food sector collaborating with technology, with finance, with other sector to create this holistic approach. Give me a good example on how that could work.
Friends cooperatives are financing startup competitions where they're giving prizes to startups to come and answer to their needs. Try to imagine this in the future to be cooperatives all over Europe developing their own venture capital funds and using their own smart money to put the bets where they should be, to get technologies that farmers really care about.
Sebastian, do you want to say something?
Yes, because on the financing aspect and the risk aspect, again, it's also about how the public money can leverage more private money. And it was also part of the discussion before in the plenary, but there was a good initiative by the European Investment Bank and DG Agri in 2019, which was a loan package specifically targeted at young farmers. And it was a 1 billion package, so loans, no grants. And we found it a very useful and very, very successful initiative, because here it was a good example of how the public intervention can then have this snowball effect where you have private funding, and you also provide guarantees to the private investors with the intervention of the European Investment Bank. So this is the type of initiative that now we would like to see being reproduced and happen again in the future.
Jürgen?
I think, but I don't know if it will still come, but I think we also had a slide around what I'm now thinking. Can we believe that the technology which is coming up will help our farmers to get the risks more under control? Will they be able, through the promising of AI, to take less risk, maybe to estimate what will the weather be this year, maybe to support them better in what decisions should I take this year? Can we already tell them that the technology is there to help them lowering the risk? And why am I saying this? Because then we need to support them in adopting this technology, because in my opinion then they should be the first to have this technology, because if the technology, and now I'm playing it a little bit with the competition, but is taken by other people in the chain, then they will be in the long run out of the business. Because once you see that the risk goes down, also other players, the processing companies for instance, would be able or would be considering, okay, maybe if I have a super AI algorithm that contains all the risks, then I can do the farming myself. So there I see a unique moment for farmers to step into the technology and say, look, we want this technology so we can control the risk, and so that the technology is not used by other players in the chain to push out the risk takers from the moment. It's a little bit a daring statement, but how do we think about that?
Very short answer, and I am asking to Oscar, Slido 5. We skipped number 4, the Slido about wanting to invest. This is the one. As any actor, etc. Grigoris.
I think
reflect
that,
on.
Yes, I think that this is a very, very good. It's a daring statement, but it's a very good
A
statement.
daring and dangerous statement. Do we have farmers in the future if machines can farm?
I don't think that machines are ready to farm yet, and I also think that it's a very good idea if we give to the farmers the possibility to own parts of the technology, to develop their own tools, their own platforms.
As strong as either you join the new way of dealing with farming, either we do it ourselves, because that's a bit what Jürgen says. Doris?
I think one important aspect here, the AI as such is one instrument and it can perform, but what we need and what is essential is known bias data and the algorithm behind it, and who programs the algorithm in which interest. So it's very important that the algorithms and the AI is used in the interest of the farmer, and that we have the credible data.
Control systems on that?
So that really depends whether you trust the provider of the AI model. So you can have an AI model provider in the interest of the farmer, but you have, as Jürgen mentioned, the whole supply chain. And everybody will be interested to use AI in his, her interest. So it's very important to have, first of all, good data in the interest of the farmer. For instance, for climate adaptation, we need not only local data, but maybe European-wide or even global data and time series. But then it's also important to have the trust that the AI algorithms are not developed by any company who would like to sell something to the farmer, but they are developed in the interest of the farmer. And that will be an essential cornerstone. And it will be, let's say, as long as we don't have high-risk AI, but let's say company AI, it would not be controlled. So, and so far, it is controlled what statements the company is selling to the outer world, but that is difficult. And that, I think, is very important to consider if we are looking ahead.
Important to consider, and maybe also something to take in mind as policymaker. I'm looking to you, Doris, and I'm looking also to the member states and also Sebastian, your farmers, I'm sorry to say, were on the streets just to have this more, the feeling of fairness, which is linked to what Doris is saying. Just looking at your at the result, as any factor along the supply chain, if you want to invest in new technologies in the agri-food sector, who would you address for ideas? Farmers, 1/3, digital innovation hubs, European and national R&D project results, startups, established technologies, and hackers, a low percentage. Is that like something expected, or did you not expect this answer, Grigoris?
Luckily, farmers are the first, which is a good idea to begin with. But what is also, I think, encouraging is that the structure we were discussing before, like the digital innovation hubs and the results of R&D projects, are also quite high in the agenda. And I think it's our job as an ecosystem to bring them even higher and actually to bring more farmers in them so that the answers make sense altogether.
Okay. The last Slido, we have still 2 Slidos, I think. Last ones. The end user is not willing to pay for the technology. That's one statement. Or we can tell it vice versa. The technology is not bringing enough value to the end user. These are 2 statements. And you can comment on that. Why is this one of the reasons why farmers are a bit hesitant to jump into every new technology, whereas maybe researchers and companies already say, come on, follow?
Yeah, well, to be really honest, I stole the question from a discussion that you engaged in the Synergy days, where a robot developer said, yeah, but they are not willing to pay the price for my robot, and I need that price. And another robot developer said, no, your robot is too expensive for what it delivers. And I think this is the question that we dare to ask, and it relates to what Grigoris says. Too much technology is not really tested in all these different conditions, and we need to be able to tell the truth to the farmer. And then again, to what I said, if the robot picks up the electronic component in a YouTube movie, he will probably also pick it up in the controlled conditions of a factory, but not when he needs to go to a greenhouse or all these complex biological conditions that come in. So that's a question that relates to that. For me, I would think, knowing a farmer, and I know quite of them in my family, they're very reluctant, but if they see value in it, they will pay. So if they don't buy the robot, I would think then the robot is not good enough for the farmer at this moment.
And there I remember you saying it is very important to work in loops, iterative loops with farmers, looking over the shoulder of developers, giving feedback, having a lot of generations of
But maybe there,
innovations.
just to go to maybe another a bit challenging statement, at least in some countries, and ours is amongst them, I think, more collaboration between farmers on this topic could also help. We developed robots or a long time ago in one country, I will not say which country, but there they said, okay, good idea. We will all work together and make for our country the best robot, and then we will be leading in Europe, and then we are the top lead, and then we will see in this country who makes it to the top level, but at least we will first work together to have the biggest innovation. While in another country, you cannot even start that process, because from the moment you start talking with the stakeholders, they're all thinking about, no, I want to have my solution. So cooperating to move forward all together and then start the competition from that platform, if you tried what if you understand what I'm trying to say, that's sometimes very difficult to farmers, like, let's work all together, go up, and then compete from there again. Sometimes it's a challenge.
I'm looking to the organization. I think it's time to stop already. Is that correct? So, I'm very sorry to say that we had a lot more questions. I personally think this was interesting, inspiring, innovative sometimes. I thank you very much, dear members of this panel. Maybe we have occasion to talk further on this noon, I don't know, or in later data. I ask Jürgen to summarize the most important things that were said and will be taken to the plenary this afternoon.
Okay. This is a list that evolves all the time, of course, if you think I need to summarize, but If there's one thing that I heard and that came back I heard it first time in the discussion with Doris, but the need for capacity building. And capacity building not only for our farmers, for instance, through the Digital Innovation Hub, where they can go to test technology, but also capacity builders for the other innovators, like startups, giving access to startups if they need support in legislation. You talk about the IT on the farm, but also the startup has not a full legal department to help him with the AI Act, the CHIP Act. I heard how well it's made for Europe, but still there are some legal challenges, or maybe also to get access to data sets. If through developments or funding we can make data sets available for startups, we can give them also the opportunity to use them and to develop smart algorithms to compete a little bit with these bigger players. Then also one that I liked, the traditional model, will it survive? And what is the danger of moving away from this globalization and start working in silos and not cooperating anymore? I think this was a very nice eye-opener. And then I learned that if you want to have farmers to adopt the technology, they need knowledge. We need to foresee them the knowledge. We need to dare to give them the chance to choose the right technology and don't push technology on them, and then foresee them the money, the investment possibilities to make it feasible to invest in the technology. That was a third point. And then still, the last one stays for me, trust, but trust by also telling the truth and not overselling our technology too much and giving to show what it really does. So when a farmer wants to pay for the robot, that at least he knows what he gets. I think these are 4 interesting takeaways that I learned today.
Thank you very much, Jürgen van Geiten. Thank you very much, Sebastian, Grigoris, and Doris, for your very interesting statements and so on. Thank you very much, dear participants, for your limited participation. I'm sorry to say. Thank you very much.